Hey there, this is Roddy and Joey from Man on Man.
And you're listening to The Chuck Vance Show.
Chuck Vance Show here at the Paper Tiger this evening. I have the pleasure of chatting with Roddy and Joey from Man on Man. Guys, welcome to the Chuck Vance Show.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's really good to be in San Antonio.
I got to say, reading up on you guys, this band was spawned from COVID isolation. How did the whole concept of the project come to fruition?
It kind of happened over the course of like when COVID hit. Joey and I live in New York and things were getting real sketchy crazy. So we just kind of on a whim more than anything, we drove across country to California because my mom was sick, and we just rented a car, and we just sort of really at the last minute kind of made a decision that we were going to like just go for it. And it was a crazy, dark, and scary drive. And on the way to California, we just sort of started talking about, like, what are we going to do? Like, it was looking more and more like there was going to be a lot of time on our hands with not a lot to do. And we knew we'd be in California for a while, and we were going to be quarantining. So we just started talking about, well, let's just start making some music just to sort of, like, keep ourselves, like, creatively inspired and stuff during the pandemic. So kind of like halfway across the country, right around here, kind of, we were like, let's, I knew we had a piano where we were going, and Joey had a guitar with him. So we kind of figured, well, if we want to record, we had a computer, and we're like, let's get a couple microphones and just some stuff so we can just start doing that. So like halfway across the country, we got some microphones, ordered them, and had them delivered to the place where we were going. And then we just got there to California, and yeah, we had nothing but time, and we just started kind of like making music together.
And, you know, since you guys are a couple, was there any hesitation when you were making music together and then you were putting it out that mixing professional and personal life at any point?
There was no self-awareness that we were doing music, like on the capacity that we're doing it now. So we weren't really going into it worried that it might affect anything, because we were just passing the time. I mean, honestly, we there was no band name when we started writing music. There was no record ideas. There was no album artwork. There was no tours for plans. It was just us passing the time. And really what the band did for us more than anything is it taught us how to work together. So, you know, I think where maybe if we had like some foresight into knowing that this would be a bigger project than we realized, maybe it would have introduced a little bit of anxiety in that way of like, oh yeah, how do we work together? But really it was so natural that I think along the way it's just sort of felt normal for our relationship to have this, and it hasn't been weird at all. I mean, we spend a lot of time together, and honestly, like, the amount of time that we spend together, it should drive us crazy, but it really doesn't. I mean, we kind of started like our relationship in quarantine, like a year after, or really a year after we were together, but the beginning of our relationship, the first year or second year was more like in quarantine. So I think we were like, that kind of set a good tone for us to learn how to deal with each other and spend a lot of time with each other.
Listening to the debut record and hearing that it was all during COVID isolation, was it scary for y'all to put out, you know, personal feelings for each other out on record and out on display for everyone in the world to hear?
For me, not so much. Like, the music that I think I gravitate towards and like I hope or try to create is something that's always like really personally driven. And it kind of feels like, I don't always get there, but it always feels like the more exposing about yourself or your situation, the more honest you are, the more of an impact there is. So I think when we started like writing from that place, us being in quarantine together, it just felt appropriate. We were going through really crazy raw emotions, like stuff was happening, and we were just kind of like, as well as being just sort of really transparent about our relationship and who we are and what we were going through, that felt really important to us. And then it kind of evolved into something different, but it always started from an honest place, and that's what we sort of aimed for.
The first single that y'all released was Daddy, and the video kind of got some pushback from YouTube. Do you think that with artists and bands that are putting stuff out on YouTube, do you think there was a double standard?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that was the first thing that when we got that information from YouTube that it was going to be taken down, the first thing we did was like, well, let's look at other videos that are still up right now. And it was like, you know, you had everything from like rock bands to rappers to like R&B singers who were doing like way, way, way more sexual stuff than we were doing. I mean, when you look at our video, it's just us in our underwear.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, like we're dancing together sometimes and we're touching each other, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a total double standard. I mean, if you look at like the tech world in general, it's ran by straight guys. And so I think the rules of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, they're going to discriminate against marginalized people who don't want to see things that they don't want to see, right? Like if you got a room of like a bunch of straight guys and they're like, what should the rules be against, what is allowed on our platforms, you're probably going to have an algorithm that if there's people commenting in the comments homophobic stuff, they're probably going to be like, oh, well, this must be inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody's writing comments that are like, great video, hot, love it, then they're not going to flag it, So we definitely feel like we're discriminated against in that way, especially with the audiences that are, able to watch it. They say some really fucked up stuff. But at the end of the day, it went back up and, Rolling Stone wrote about it, so I guess it's not that bad in the end, but, yeah.
One thing I love really listening to the album was the use in the lyrics of innuendos. And I know, Roddy, you write a lot about it. How much fun was it putting those innuendos into the lyrics during the writing process?
I always love working on lyrics, and like I don't know, that's the stuff that I gravitate towards, and the stuff that I really like is always have double meanings. And it's an appropriate place for like a queer couple to go because it's like it's always like a double take. Like when people hear our stuff or listen to us or like get involved in what we're doing, it's like they think it's one thing and then like, oh, kind of like do a double take. They're like not really sure. So for the words to do that as well and have sort of like a double meaning or an entendre, or like you're saying a sort of like hidden sort of like different kind of exposure, it works really well. And in that way, it was sort of like, it was fun to work as a couple and just like bounce things off each other, because we do a lot of just like laughing, honestly.
Yeah.
It was fun to sort of like just go back and forth and come up with fun ideas.
You did this debut album. Did y'all really think it was going to be an actual record that was going to come out and you were going to tour behind it when y'all were in quarantine recording these songs and writing these songs?
No, we did.
No.
I mean, we really, like I said, like there was no, it was just like, like Roddy said, like we were just passing the time, and it was like we released our video for Daddy, and that made us realize that we were not just making music for ourselves anymore. I think at that point, it kind of inserted some more vision besides just the four walls that we were in, like it was like the world started to get a little bit bigger because we had, if you look back at the time that we started this, it was the beginning of quarantine. Everyone was stuck inside. And when we put the video out, there were a lot of people who we could start to really kind of feel like our project was more than just us two doing our thing. It's always about us and from our perspective and, about our relationship, but it became for something way bigger than us. And we had there was nothing would have ever indicated before we were, even after we released Daddy, really, that we would be touring, literally around the world at this point. We're going to be touring in the UK and Europe, in a couple of months. And like, I would have never, ever would have thought we would be doing that.
Imagine when y'all were in quarantine, just, passing the time, writing these songs together, doing all this, it's like,
well, we're like
holy
sitting.
crap, we're going to be touring Europe on these songs.
And we made them on a laptop, and like, we're sitting and tracking vocals on like a piano bench that Roddy, grew up playing on. And like, there was nothing, like we wrote songs in Roddy's mom's living room, like this beautiful place in like LA. Like it was just, nothing was like rock record, okay, we're taking on the world. It was like, it was just really pure and easy, and that's all it was at the time.
How the fans' reactions been on tour with the shows?
Really good. Like we did a sort of a spell of shows like a couple months ago, and those were our sort of first shows, and it was like crazy. I mean, first of all, it's just crazy to be out here like post-COVID and just doing it kind of before other people are, or when it's just getting started again. There was a lot of hesitancy, like we weren't sure what was going to happen. And most of the places we're playing, we've never been to these places before. And then the fact that we're a queer rock band, which is also weird, it's a lot of like ifs out there and a lot of like hesitancy, like how can this work kind of. But at the same time, we're sort of bold and empowered in what we're doing. And the shows have been awesome. Like every show we play really is just like fantastic. Like mostly the shows that we're playing in cities for the first time, like a lot of people show up. We've had a really good like queer community in every place we've gone, and they've been really fantastic, really good.
On the tour, I know Faya and the Wizard are opening here in San Antonio. Have you been looking for like queer LGBTQ bands to open in the cities you've been going to, or?
You know, not so much. I mean, we do like initially that's sort of our deal. Like we try and work with other queer artists, but for the most part, it feels like most of the clubs that we've played in, most of the shows that we've played, the promoters are sort of on board with what we're doing, and they help us sort of source out like a queer act. Yeah, it's been pretty good in that way. Like there haven't been like too many missteps. I think as we get bigger and do our own thing and sort of like do a more established tour like that isn't at this level, when we'll be able to bring out people that we know, or sort of like, yeah, I think more than often not, I think it's going to be like from our queer family for sure.
What I like to do here on the Chuck Van Show, I like to call it the artist pick. So I'd like you guys to pick 2 songs off your debut album that I'm going to play on the show, and why you chose to play those.
I'm a real fan of Stoner, the first song on the record. It really packs a punch, and it's sort of dictated where we went with our live sound. And then I'm also going to say Baby You're My Everything, because it's sort of a flip side, and it's like a love story, and it has a lot of impact for me.
Great song. After the tour, going to Europe and all that, what's next for Man on Man?
We're gonna probably start working on our record this summer. We have a lot of probably 10 songs done.
Oh, wow.
So we'll keep writing, probably go in the studio end of summer. I think we're going back to Europe later in the year, book more shows, just be in everyone's faces, you know? Like just, I think that this first like bigger tour that we've done has just shown that people are coming out and they're excited about what we're doing, and it's really informing a lot of like our excitement for life in general right now. It's so great to have an outlet and be doing something while the world is still closed down but opening up at the same time. It's a good outlet to have. So I think we're just going to keep pushing forward and make new music and play more shows and, you know, see where it goes.
And where can people find you, like social media? Because that's the big place that you always find everybody. Where can they find you all on social media?
You could follow us on Instagram at Man on Man Music.
Roddy, Joey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Enjoy South by Southwest. You're heading north from here, and enjoy the rest of the tour.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show.